In this short video, I will be introducing cognitivism as a learning theory. Cognitive learning theory deals with the cognitive, meaning the mental processes we use to perceive the world. Cognition is thus about how we think, perceive, and understand what we encounter. A cognitive learning theory will thus be about how we gain knowledge and reach understanding through our senses, thinking, and our experiences. Some of the things that scholars who use this learning theory therefore study is memory, attention, and problem solving as mental processes. Unlike behaviorism, cognitive learning theory is about what happens inside us, whereas behaviorism is about how the external world affects us. Here it is worth pointing out that one theory does not necessarily preclude the other from having any explanatory value. It is also quite rare to see someone in educational science trying to argue that either theory can explain everything. When it comes to learning, it is therefore important to emphasize that we get closer to the truth about learning if we can state that both theories and more theories have their own merits. So learning is about cognition, but it is also about how the external world affects us as learners. I will not go into that here, but there are also attempts to combine theories like these into a more unified theory. But going back to cognitive learning theory, an important aspect of cognitive learning theory is metacognition. This is about thinking about thinking. So, what you aim to do as a researcher is to understand how your internal mental processes contribute to learning. But as an individual, you can also learn how learning works and then adapt your learning in a way that's consistent with the research. Accordingly, by thinking about your own thinking, you can improve your learning. So, if you start to think and critically review on how you learn for the best and what happened when you learned something, you can also use this metacognitive ability, this metacognitive practice in order to improve your learning by actually doing what you see as effective. This was the aim of one of Jean Piaget's theory of learning, who has been influential in many other learning theories. And he was in the forefront of cognitive learning theory. What Piaget wanted to emphasize was that knowledge is not something that is obtained passively. Instead, he emphasized that knowledge is something that we create based on the knowledge we have and the mental maturity that we have reached. Therefore, children will learn differently from adults, which a teacher must be aware of. As a side note, what Piaget started has evolved into what is sometimes described as active learning theory, emphasizing how students are active in the learning process. They don't just sit still and receive knowledge. Instead, learning occurs when students can take what they already know and can do and relate it to new knowledge and experiences. However, this is not a theory that is specific to cognitivism, but should instead be understood as an educational strategy influenced by several different theories, including constructivism and social learning. I would also like to mention that cognitive learning theory, similar to other learning theories, highlights social aspects of cognitive processes, which is usually described as social cognitive theory. It argues that learning is a social process focusing on the community and relationships that surrounds learning. According to this theory, this part of cognitive learning theory, people learn by observing than others. It argues that the environment, behavior, and cognition influence each other. How you think and perceive something will therefore depend on how you observe others acting. But it will also depend on the environment that you are in. Social cognitive theory thus emphasizes that the social environment is important when learning. So if you are constantly in an environment where you are forced to be tired, you might know your cognitive processes might not work as well as if you were well rested. So in summary, cognitive learning theory focuses on explaining how mental processes such as memory, attention, and problem solving contribute to learning. Researchers therefore investigate how students store and retrieve information, aiming to identify strategies that enhance these cognitive functions. Researchers also study metacognition, examining how individuals monitor and regulate their own thinking and learning processes. Finally, research using cognitive learning theory explores the social dimensions of cognition, such as the role of observation, collaboration, and the environment in shaping learning experiences. So, thanks for listening. Take care.